I'm leaving you and moving to Los Angeles with my 22-year-old girlfriend. I already cleaned out our shared account. LOL. That was the text. No hello, no apology. Just that. I sat motionless in my home office in Austin, Texas, staring at my phone as if it had glitched. For a second, the words blurred together like a cruel joke, but the screen stayed the same. It was real. Trevor, my husband of 15 years, had ended our marriage via text, and he had the audacity to end it with LOL. I know most people would feel rage heartbreak, maybe even throw the phone across the room, but not me. As absurd as it sounds, what I felt was calm. Bone deep, almost peaceful calm. Because Trevor had no idea what he had just walked into. My name is Amanda Griffin. I'm 41. I work as a financial advisor for Sundale Financial, and for the past decade and a half, I believed I was building a future with Trevor. We had the picturesque house in Tarrytown, one of the most sought-after neighborhoods in Austin. We shared joint accounts planned for retirement, talked about maybe adopting one day. We were the couple others pointed to at dinner parties and said, they've really got it together. That's what they saw. But what Trevor didn't know was that for the past 3 months, I had been preparing for this very moment. Right before his text arrived, I had been reviewing legal documents on my desk documents that outlined the financial firewall I had quietly and legally built around everything we owned. Trust structures, real estate title transfers, secured retirement assets, not hidden, just protected, fully documented, fully legal. Because when your job is helping high net worth clients safeguard their money during crises, you learn a thing or two. 3 months ago, I had started to notice the patterns, like I always do with clients. Inconsistent expense reports, unexplained charges, fancy dinners at restaurants I'd never heard of, jewelry receipts but no gifts. And of course, the evasive phone calls, the ones that suddenly ended when I walked into a room. Most spouses would have confronted their partner in tears. I didn't. I started planning. It might help to know who Trevor really was, or at least who I thought he was. We met 16 years ago at a backyard barbecue in North Austin. He was working in commercial real estate, the confident guy with the charming grin and perfect handshake. I was fresh at Sundale Financial, hungry to prove myself in a field where women are still casually called sweetheart in boardrooms. Trevor chased me. Flowers calls fancy dates. When he proposed, it felt like the kind of love people post about vintage-style rings, Sunday brunches, European getaways. Our wedding was elegant, nothing over the top, just us smiling like idiots, promising forever. We bought our house 2 years later, a 4-bedroom colonial tucked under mature oak trees, with a skyline view of downtown. We poured love and money into it. Brick by brick, room by room, it became our dream house. At least that's what I thought. For years, life rolled forward predictably. We took vacations, hosted Thanksgiving dinners, supported each other's careers. Well, I supported his. Trevor's real estate deals fluctuated. Some good years, some not so good. Meanwhile, my career was rising. I was securing bigger clients, building diversified portfolios, even mentoring younger women at the firm. But I never held that over him, never made him feel small, or so I thought. But over time, I started noticing shadows, not just in Trevor, but in us. 18 months ago, Trevor started working later, always on some huge deal that never seemed to close. He became oddly protective of his laptop, which used to live on the kitchen island but now stayed zipped in his briefcase. He postponed meetings with our estate attorney, something I gently suggested we update. And then the charges started to show up his smug LA-bound face. I kept just enough in the joint account to maintain the illusion, about $15,000. To Trevor, that was everything we had, because he never once asked about our actual financial picture. As long as his Amex worked and there was cold beer in the fridge, he was content, until that Tuesday afternoon. The text came while I was finishing up a quarterly earnings review. I set down my pen, looked at the screen, and exhaled. He thought he'd landed the knockout punch. He had no idea I'd already won the match. By the time I finished rereading Trevor's breakup text, I was already 2 steps ahead. I typed a 2-word reply, best wishes. Then I smiled. He'd always mocked my career, called it my spreadsheet hobby, as if I didn't manage portfolios larger than the value of our house on a regular Tuesday. He never paid attention to how often I stayed late helping clients restructure after messy divorces or business failures. And he certainly didn't care when I warned friends about the dangers of not protecting their assets in a marriage. He thought all of that was just Amanda being paranoid. That delusion was about to become very expensive. I spent the rest of that afternoon as if nothing had changed, because in reality, nothing had for me. I reviewed investment proposals, took 2 client calls, and signed off on a new estate plan for a tech exec going through a complicated divorce. The irony wasn't lost on me. Around 6 p.m., my phone began buzzing. Trevor, I ignored it. Then again. 5 calls later, I finally picked up. Amanda, we need to talk. He said, his voice low, a bit shaky. You already talked, I replied evenly. You texted me, remember, you're leaving me for a 22-year-old. You took the money. What else is there to say? Look, I know it was sudden, but I've been unhappy for a long time. Madison just helped me realize what I want out of life. I deserve to be happy. We both do. Ah, so her name was Madison. Interesting. I understand, I said calmly. I hope Los Angeles works out for you. There was a long pause, dead air from his side of the line. I knew what was happening. He was trying to recalibrate. This wasn't the reaction he expected. You're taking this awfully well. I thought you'd be more upset. What would you like me to say, Trevor? That I'm devastated? That I'm going to throw things and beg you to come back? No. We're both adults. You made a choice. I accept it. Well, yeah, I mean, it's good that you're mature about it. I was just worried you'd make things difficult. I almost laughed at that. If only he knew. Not at all, I said smoothly. You've already left. There's nothing for me to make difficult. Actually, I'm already in Los Angeles. His voice perked up, trying to regain control. Madison and I are looking at apartments in West Hollywood. It's incredible out here, the weather, the lifestyle. I should have done this years ago. I gave the most generic response I could. That sounds lovely. I wish you both well. There's just one thing. And here it came. I'll need access to our other accounts. The joint one I cleared out was good for initial expenses, but we'll need more for deposits and living costs. You know how it is starting over. The moment I had been waiting for. What other accounts? Trevor. Another pause. What do you mean? What other accounts? Our savings, investments, the money market account, all of it. I know you handle the financial stuff, but I'm entitled to half. I smiled so wide it almost hurt. Trevor, I'm not sure what you're referring to. We had the joint checking account. You said you already emptied that. As for other assets, those are held in a series of trusts and financial structures for estate planning purposes. You signed the paperwork yourself. Don't you remember what paperwork? What are you talking about? The trusts, the asset protection structures, the estate planning updates we implemented over the last few months. You said you trusted my judgment and didn't need to read the details. Remember, his breathing changed. Faster, shallower. Amanda, I need access to that money. I need it now. I'm afraid that's not how trusts work, Trevor. Those assets are protected and can't be distributed on demand. Perhaps you should consult a legal professional. I can recommend someone. Click. He hung up. The next morning, I woke up in the same beautiful house, but now the only person on the deed was my trust. I brewed my coffee, ate breakfast, and checked my phone. 17 missed calls, all from Trevor, all ignored. The texts that followed were increasingly frantic. Call me back now. You can't do this to me, Amanda. We're married. This is childish. Madison and I are stuck in a hotel. Do you know how expensive LA is? I'm getting a lawyer if you don't respond. I deleted everyone. That day at Sundale, I met with a new client, an ER doctor going through a surprise divorce. Her husband had taken $90K and disappeared. As we went over options for asset recovery and future protection, I realized something almost funny. I wasn't just helping her, I was walking the same path. Around noon, my assistant buzzed in. "Amanda, there's a Trevor Griffin on line 2, says it's urgent." I didn't flinch. "Tell him I'm unavailable. And if he continues calling, please inform him that all personal matters are to be addressed through my attorney." An hour later, Patricia Walsh rang my office. Well, she said, "Guess who I just got a call from?" I didn't need to guess. A lawyer in Los Angeles, Bradley Henderson. He claims to represent Trevor now. He had questions about the trust structures we put in place. Let me guess he thinks they're invalid, correct? He argues Trevor didn't understand what he was signing. I chuckled. And I reminded him that ignorance of legal documents doesn't nullify them, especially when the spouse in question refused to participate in financial discussions for over a decade. Patricia's voice was calm, but laced with satisfaction. "Oh, and one more thing," she added. "Apparently, Trevor and Madison are staying in a hotel that charges $400 a night. They thought they'd be living in luxury by now. I did a quick mental calculation. At that rate, their $15K nest egg would be gone in 2 weeks, maybe less, if you counted food and ride shares." I leaned back in my chair and smiled again. The man who thought he was escaping with everything was already circling the drain. It was Friday morning when I got the email. The subject line was simple: "From Madison." I stared at it for a second, unsure whether to laugh, brace myself, or just delete it unopened. But curiosity won. "Dear Amanda, I know this is awkward, but Trevor told me you're being unreasonable about the divorce settlement. I just want you to know that we're not trying to hurt you. We're in love, and we want to start our new life together. Trevor says you have plenty of money, and this won't even affect you. Please consider being generous. Madison Generous." That word rang in my head for hours afterward. She genuinely thought I was being petty, that this was about bitterness, as if Trevor hadn't already drained the only joint account and fled the state with a woman barely older than our niece, and now she wanted a donation. No. I closed the email. No response. No reaction. Just delete. By that afternoon, Patricia called again, this time with an update that was almost too on the nose to believe. Amanda Trevor's attorney just filed an emergency motion for temporary spousal support and access to marital assets. I blinked. "You're kidding." "Nope. He's claiming financial hardship, accusing you of hiding assets." I couldn't help myself. I let out a short laugh. "So the man who bragged about draining our joint account now wants access to the funds I legally protected." Exactly. And here's the kicker: his lawyer submitted that text message as part of their motion, the one where Trevor said, "I already cleaned out our shared account, LOL." "Oh, Patricia, that's going to age beautifully." "You bet it is," she replied. "That message shows voluntary dissipation of marital funds. It's Exhibit A." I sat back and marveled at the absurdity. The very text he used to gloat over me was now the rope he'd hung his entire case on. By Monday, the pressure was clearly getting to him. Another unknown number flashed on my phone, Los Angeles area code again. I answered, expecting another attorney, but it was her. "Amanda, it's Madison. Please don't hang up." Her voice was shaky, young, Southern drawl just barely detectable beneath the nerves. I stayed silent, letting her speak. Trevor's really struggling right now. Our hotel kicked us out yesterday. His credit card got declined. We're staying in a motel now, and it's not safe. Still, I said nothing. He says you're doing this to punish him, but I don't understand why you won't help. "Madison," I said calmly, "can I ask you something?" "Okay. How long have you and Trevor been together? About 6 months?" She hesitated. "We met at a real estate conference in Dallas. He said he was in an unhappy marriage, that you two were basically living separate lives. 6 months. Trevor had been planning his exit for half a year, while I had been protecting our assets for 3 months. He had a head start, but he didn't know I was running a different race entirely. Did Trevor tell you about our financial situation? He said you were wealthy, that you had investments and property, that when he left you, we'd be able to live really well in Los Angeles. He promised we could rent in Beverly Hills and I could focus on my acting career. I almost felt bad. Almost. Madison, did he ever mention anything about trusts or legal protections? Trusts. I don't know what that means. He said you handled all that stuff, that he'd get his share in the divorce, so he hadn't just lied to me. He'd lied to her, too. He painted himself as the victim of a cold, calculating wife, never mentioning that he'd signed away access to the very money he was now chasing. Madison, I said gently, the money you thought you had, it's gone. The rest is legally protected. Trevor can't touch it. Silence. Then a whisper. Are you saying we're broke? I'm saying Trevor should have been honest with both of us. On Wednesday, my assistant buzzed in again. Amanda, there's a Trevor Griffin on line 1. Again, do you want me to send him to voicemail? No, I said, standing up. I'll take it. Amanda, this has gone far enough. His voice was brittle. No more bravado. We're living in my rental car. Do you understand that we're homeless? I need access to that money. I sat down, slow and deliberate. I'm sorry to hear that, Trevor. But you made choices, and those choices have consequences. Don't give me that legal crap. You hid our money to spite me. You set this whole thing up. No, Trevor. I protected our assets the same way I do for my clients. You had every opportunity to be part of those discussions. You chose not to. I want a divorce. But I want my fair share. Then file. But the assets you're referring to aren't marital in the traditional sense anymore. They're held in irrevocable trusts with very specific rules. What the HL does that mean? It means you should have read the documents you signed. It means you should have shown up to our financial meetings instead of watching ESPN. More silence, then something different, something unfamiliar in his voice. Amanda, please, I made a mistake. Madison left me yesterday. She said this isn't what she signed up for. She flew back to Dallas. I'm alone. I'm broke. I don't know what to do. I didn't sigh. I didn't cry. I didn't gloat. I just said best wishes, Trevor. And I hung up. 2 weeks after Trevor's teary pleas, I got the official notice Trevor Griffin had filed for divorce in Los Angeles County. Of course he had. That was where he thought he could still win. Still manipulate the story, still be the charming guy with the sad tale of a cold wife and a cruel financial twist. Patricia and I reviewed the filing together at her office in downtown Austin. She flipped through the documents with practiced fingers, one well-manicured nail tapping lightly on each page. He's asking for spousal support, half of all marital assets, and get this, damages for what he calls financial manipulation and deceit. I raised an eyebrow. Damages. For protecting our estate legally. Yup. His lawyer is arguing that you deliberately concealed assets to prevent him from accessing his fair share. Apparently, Trevor now claims he was unaware of the implications of the documents he signed. I couldn't even bring myself to be angry. Does that ever work? Patricia laughed. Only when the spouse is actually misled or defrauded. In your case, we have clear documentation, full transparency, and multiple instances of Trevor explicitly opting out of financial meetings. Plus, she reached into her briefcase and pulled out a thick folder. We have Exhibit A. She held up a printout of Trevor's infamous text message, I already cleaned out our shared account LOL. Bragging about emptying the joint account, that's gold. It demonstrates premeditated dissipation of funds, not to mention the LOL at the end. Judges don't love that kind of I never thought it would happen to me. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't come storming in like a villain in a movie. It creeps, soft steps, slippery lies, warm smiles masking cold intentions. And if you're not watching, really watching, you miss it until it's too late. But not me. Not this time. Because Trevor's mistake wasn't the affair. It wasn't even stealing from our joint account. It was underestimating me. He believed I was the softer one, the boring one, the spreadsheet girl who smiled politely and handled the money stuff. But while he was charming his way through real estate mixers and conference hotel bars, I was quietly becoming the architect of his undoing. That, in the end, was the most poetic justice of all. 6 months after our divorce was finalized, my life wasn't just back to normal. It was better. I started taking on more high-profile divorce clients, especially women blindsided by betrayal. I shared what I'd learned, not just the numbers and legal tools, but the mindset, the grit, the readiness. I also began mentoring more junior advisors, especially young women new to the financial world. I told them, don't just learn to build wealth, learn how to protect it, especially from the people closest to you. And me, I was thriving, not just surviving. I hosted seminars, led workshops, launched a side project to educate women about asset protection in long-term relationships. Every now and then, Trevor would pop into my mind, usually when I was jogging past the Terrytown Farmers Market or sipping coffee on the porch of the house he thought he'd own half of. Once a mutual friend ran into him at a networking event back in Dallas, said he was working as a leasing agent now, living in a studio, alone. He'd tell people I blindsided him, said I gutted the estate, claimed I turned cold overnight. But the truth is, I didn't change. I just stopped playing the fool. I protected myself. I stayed smart. I did exactly what I do for a living and what he never thought I'd do for myself. So here's what I've learned and what I'll leave you with. When someone shows you that they only value you for what you provide, your money, your loyalty, your silence, you owe it to yourself to be ready. Not vengeful, not vindictive, just ready. Ready to stand up, to walk away, to sign the papers with your head high. Because the best revenge isn't slamming doors or shouting matches. It's sipping coffee in the home they thought they'd take from you, watching their attorney choke on a trust clause and sleeping peacefully, knowing you protected your future like the boss you always were. And maybe smiling at the memory of that one fateful text message, I'm leaving you and moving to LA with my 22-year-old girlfriend. I already cleaned out our account. LOL, yeah. Best wishes, Trevor. Have you ever been underestimated by someone who thought they were smarter, stronger, or more in control? Drop your story in the comments. And if Amanda's journey inspired you, subscribe and share this video with someone who needs a reminder. Being underestimated is your greatest weapon.